I've always, been curious about basically who am I? My childhood was a bit mixed up, so maybe that's the trigger of who am I? And that, in some sense, was very valuable, but also I was helped. And that was my grandmother. She was a singer. I mean, she went to study music in Paris. Now, that was a very unusual thing at the end of the 19th century for a young lady to go to Paris and study music. Anyway, she went to study, and in those days, teachers were ferocious. They pushed you through whether it's art or whatever it was, but especially with music. And she had a cold and she lost her voice. That was her career gone. And my grandmother basically was behind me in terms of encouraging me. And so that was basically the starter in terms of me. The problem was I couldn't count and I couldn't read because I'm dyslexic. And every job I got fired because things just didn't connect. And there was a family meeting and sort of, what are we going to do with this idiot? So luckily, there was a connection to the theatre. So I became an apprentice scene painter. And that was really basically a kind of connection. I exercised that German thing that was in me. But there was another thing that was in me, and it's called Orientalism. And I wanted to get rid of that too. And that actually was something to do with coming to China. And so I wanted to come to China, but you couldn't go to China in those days because unless you were a communist, especially Chinese communist-friendly kind of society, and I wasn't really interested in that at all. I went to one of them and they were so boring. And, and it was all, and then they showed me all these stupid movies. And, people don't behave like that. People don't operate machinery that's highly dangerous, with such gay abandon. This friend of mine who had been to Camberwell, and she was in Hong Kong, and she said, look, come to Hong Kong, well, come to Cheung Chau because it's much easier to get into China from Hong Kong or Macau. So that's what I did.
And when was it? When you first
1976. So I came here, and of course, Hong Kong was an entirely different creature in 1976. We all have ghosts that somehow we picked up. Ghosts are, of course, illusionary. But ghosts are also, things that we kind of pick up. And I was in love with people like the kind of Blaureiter, Kandinsky, that area. So I had a big exhibition. I did extremely well. And with that money, I went to Munich. And I lived in Munich for about a year. Just over a year. I remember when the first night and Cheung Chau, I was at night, everything was dark except occasional bulb here and there. I was seeing the same things that Rembrandt saw. That has disappeared from Europe. Everything's disappeared. We no longer have this kind of direct experience of things. And the sense of order, in the sense, the way that people would put their, in the vegetable market, people would order put their carrots and onions and things like that, would be different from the next one. And this kind of order was more noticeable than, say, a design. So when I'm drawing and I come back, behind here, you can't really see it, but here is that on the white thing. And so when I'm making something, I'm making it in relation to my proportion. It's a constant reminder that I'm not separate. That this body, the body of the tree and the body of me are one. Da-dam. And my drawing is literally, is to do with a response to that, to the living things that are surrounding me. This one here is to do with Cheung Chau. So all these boxes of drawings are my daily drawings when I go on my drawing walks. This is to do with Juhoi. And this is to do with Ying Sai Feng Ram. So these are things to do with Ying Sai Feng Ram, which is a place up in northwest Guangdong. So these are drawings that I do. A project I did in Guangzhou to do with the Triennale. That one, but it was, I took students to Huiping, because Huiping has a past. And most people don't know that kind of past, because you've got people in other lands, other stories. And we had a bag lady who came from Texas that was living in Huiping. And she talked about, from Texas to, from Texas back to Huiping. And, so these kind of stories, which none of those students ever experienced anything like it. The idea is, of course, like a clearing somewhere in Cheung Chau, but it's also in terms of things, as it were, growing all around it, but hemmed in. And actually, it's the first time I've ever done a protest painting, because what is happening in Cheung Chau in terms of the countryside is ruinous. No bees, no butterflies, virtually all kind of wildlife, except now and again an angry snake, which is maybe symbolical. But I feel the whole of the countryside of Cheung Chau is being destroyed. I see Hong Kong people being cornered. They're being pushed into things like this. And that's why I'm saying cornered. But it's also transparent, because it is transparent what's happening. But people can't see it. Or some people do. But you're not allowed to say anything about it. So it's a kind of protest. As I said, I've never done anything like that before. And the whole installation of it is, as you can see, one corner here another corner here. So it's something hemmed in like that. The whole idea, transparency, is something is transparent and you can see through it. You know, I mean, everybody is seeing through it, but nobody does anything about it. And, you know, as I'm saying, there's this one is the only solid piece. This is the painting of just like a clearing. But the whole thing can be, as I said, slightly at an angle, because what I will put is an armature. So it will be at an angle like that, rather than standing up like this. So I hope that people will understand about transparency and opaqueness. And of course the title, Cornered, is significant. I mean, that's a clue. So if you're cornered, it's not a positive, you know. I mean it in the negative. So I think I hope that the public would see what it's about, because you know everything exists in terms of its opposite. Transparency exists in terms of opaqueness. Yes, I mean, I'm just being myself. That's what Hong Kong people need to be too. Because I can't tell anybody about their culture, because that's everybody, you know, thing. But